4 civilizations. I have done one. Now I'm going to be talking about the other one, the Egyptian civilization. Now you may have heard of Egypt. And where is it located? On the eastern side of the Sahara Desert. And you know how the Egyptian civilization flourished there? The longest river in the world, River Nile. Yes, it started on the fertile valleys of the River Nile, as any other civilization would start. So it's part of the 4 biggest civilizations, and they are known as River Valley civilizations since they started on rivers. This is because of 3 things, and I'm just referring to the Nile. Number 1, the Nile proved as a good source of agriculture. Yes, because every year, without fail, the Nile flooded on its banks, transforming the valley into a fertile land. This is how the first people of the Egyptian civilization started settling there and carried out farming in around 5000 BCE. Number 2, it acts as a source of irrigation. Yes, the Egyptians built dams, dikes, reservoirs that were directly connected to the River Nile. And number 3, it acted as a national highway. Now, what is national highway? Well, where I live, which is Topsia, we go by the Ma flyover. It's like a highway. So the River Nile proved as a good source of transportation for the Egyptians to carry out trade, commerce with other countries. Now, they went by boat, of course. But now, when we talk about what happened to the other part of the desert, now, the whole fertile valley was 1200 kilometers long, and the rest, it was a desert of sand and stone. But this was an added advantage. Since there were so many sandstorms that the foreign invasions, it prevented them, and it proved as a good source of mineral deposits and metal. The Egyptians could use to make tools and quarry, and then they could shape limestone and granite, the type of mineral, into beautiful sculptures, temples and pyramids. That's how they all started. Now we talk about what were the 4 periods of the Egyptian civilization. See, every civilization, most of them, they have some periods where there were new eras, like many things changed, and they had 4 periods in the Egyptian civilization, and they were separated by intermediate periods, meaning the period of instability. Now, in my opinion, stability means things went well and everything, and no corruption happened or any sort of changes. But when it came to the instability period, that's when things started changing, and that led to the growth of a new era. Now, when I be talking about the 4 dynasties, it's very easy, and they're also called kingdoms for some reason. The early dynasty period, the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. The early dynasty period, it started from 3100 BCE to 2686 BCE. That is when the Egyptian civilization started. Now, there's no instability period here. Straight on with the old period. It started from 2686 BCE to 2181 BCE. And now this is where the instability thing happens, and then so on. And we go on to the middle period. The Middle Kingdom, sorry. It started from 2050 BCE to 1650 BCE. And from the New Kingdom, which was the last kingdom to occur, was from 1550 BCE to 1069 BCE. And who was the last like why, see, every period or all of the Egyptian civilization, they were ruled by a pharaoh or a king or a queen. And that came to an end around 30 BCE. And the last king, who was actually a queen, was Cleopatra VII. And she's really famous in history, and she earned her books because of her romance, because of her rule as co-regent, once with her son and once with her two brothers and once then with her son. And she had a lot of romance with the Roman periods, the Roman kings like Julius Caesar. And now we come out to who formed the last period of which is the New Kingdom. General Ptolemy, who was actually the general of Alexander the Great. And you know why the New Kingdom came to an end and the end of Egyptian civilization is because of Alexander the Great. And then the Egyptian civilization just became a big Roman empire. We go on to the town planning. Now, what actually happened in the Egyptian civilization? Now, the town planning, just like the Harappan and Indus Valley civilization, it followed the grid system. Meaning, see, there's a whole platform of land. The Egyptian civilization is here. Now, there were streets and narrow streets, normal streets. The streets ran literally cutting the narrow streets to form right angles, and that forms grids or blocks that just basically divides the whole place into blocks or grids. And what about the houses? Now, there were two types of houses, the dwelling houses and the public buildings. Now, what did these houses depend on? No, I'm not talking about the architecture. I'm talking about that. Was it different or was it all the same? It was different. Not because there were so many families and there were so many caste systems. There were 4 actually. And it depended on the family's wealth, like the big joint family. It depended on the condition of that area, like a rural or urban, like how it was governed or whatever. And it also depended on social circumstances, the Varna system. But they all had the same basis on what they were made on in architecture. They were made from mud, and it was sometimes combined with straw to make it more durable. Now, it was shaped into blocks, and those blocks, they were baked in the hard, dry sunshine until hard, and that's how they formed it. But the thickness of the wall depended on, was it 1, 2, or 3 blocks? It could be 3, it could be 1, but normally it would be 1. But sometimes it went to such an extent that due to social circumstances, palaces and temples, they were surrounded by walls. Yes, and there were 2 gateways on the front and back wall. Public buildings, okay? Now, they were made with really high walls, and the layout was just symmetrical. That's how it looked beautiful. And they had really big gateways, but for some reason they disappeared, leaving no trace. Now we go on to the caste system. There are 4 castes: the upper, middle, lower, lowest. Now, the upper caste consisted of the pharaoh, his royal family, the priests, the government, and it was called the vizier. The middle class comprised of merchants, artisans, etc. The lower caste consisted of laborers and farmers, but the lowest class were the prisoners of war, slaves. Now we talk about, the family. Now, it was usually a close-knit group. You know what that means. There is a big joint family, so there are no cousins living there, there are no cousins living there, there are no grandfathers living there. No, it's a big family. And that's why their houses are built according to how big it is. And the father, being the eldest male of the family, he was the head of the family, of course. But there were also women who had rights of the property, and they were brought at par with the men, and they had equal shares. But there was something really wrong with the education. It was only imparted to boys, but girls, they had to take care of the home. We go on to the occupations. Just like the Mesopotamian, Harappan, of course, agriculture was the main occupation of the Egyptians. They cultivated wheat, barley, peas, cotton, etc. since the valley was really fertile. Arts and crafts, it was flourishing in the Egyptian civilization. Now, there were many arts and crafts people, goldsmiths, carpenters, normal smiths. Yes, sculptures mainly. There were flax, yarn, textiles, and just normal cotton that was manufactured. Sculptures, they sculpted really good temples and pyramids and sphinxes because they were all made of one single block. We move on to the architecture. Okay, now you all know about the Pyramid of Giza and the Sphinx. But what is the Sphinx anyways? The Sphinx is the body of a lion and the head of a man. Two things. And it was really big. Now, the Sphinx just represented how the Egyptians were excellent sculptors, as it was carved out of one single block. Now you might be thinking, what does it like think of? It's just a mythological figure that the Egyptians believed, since they believed in so many gods and animals, like the jackals, the bulls, the many more. And that transcends to the next thing, is that what did they believe in, and the life after death. Now they've worshipped like really many gods, like Osiris, the god of the dead, and Ra, the god of the sun. What about life after death? You've seen so many mummies, bandages, people who are of the dead who are wrapped in bandages. But actually they've preserved dead bodies who are embalmed by the Egyptians, and they use so many chemicals, and I'll tell you one that is not in my book, natron salt, and they left it to dry for like 40 days. And you know what? All the body parts, the inner organs of the dead body was removed and put in compartments. Only the heart was remained, and they just stitched it back up. We go on to medicines. Medicines is where the doctors and everyone, they're very renowned. You know why? Because they had deep knowledge on biology, on the biology of a human. They specialized in eyes and teeth. Yes, I've heard that they literally made braces out of gold. Trade and commerce. Every civilization has that. So it's not funny that this doesn't, because it did. And it was actually controlled directly by the pharaoh. It was done in the barter system, that's fine. But what did they import and export? Normal import would be lime, grains, furniture. But what did they export? Sorry, that was export. Yeah, now import, sorry. They imported copper, gold, ivory, and cedar wood. Now that makes sense because it's like buying things, since like they get something in exchange for like richer things which they can like get from. What happened with their pictographic script? Yes, the Egyptians invented some sort of script which was in the figures of, there were many kinds of, they were not letters actually, they were drawings, were in the form of letters. There were 24 consonants, no vowels. And it was written on clay tablets or maybe on stone walls. But again, it was also written on papyrus, which was made out of, paper. Just kind of paper. But what did they use to write on? I mean, you could write on stone tablets and clay tablets and like everything, and you could just carve it out, like just. But they had to use some sort of pen or pencil or anything. And you know what they used? The ink that they used? It was made of soot and gum and water. Very nice. I'm impressed. And now we talk about the pyramids. Did you know that the pyramids are actually where they put all the sarcophagus inside? Yes, that's where things have been unearthed probably. And they were not actually made of sand. They were actually made of lime and other things. They were not like sandstone. No. And they were step by step wise. The pyramids were made in such a way by Imhotep of like the sarcophagus of the Djoser. It was made of stone by step that it just made a triangle. But how was the end of the Egyptian civilization end? It's just a reminder that the end was by Alexander the Great. Yes, he invaded and many other things weakened this civilization. But still, it's one of my favorite civilizations, so it's just me signing off.